Greetings, YouTube. So I read something the other day that kind of resonated with me. I think it might have been on Instagram. That there are two genders in America, male and the political. There are two races, white and the political. There are two religions, Christian and the political. The default is seen as the norm, and everything else is a political discussion. There's two sexualities. There's straight and the political. If you aren't straight in America, it's okay to consider your sexuality to be a topic of politics. The same with your gender or your religion or your uh, pronouns. There's cis pronoun and then there's the political. If you use any kind of a trans pronoun, obviously you are outside the norm. And that's disturbing because too many people discuss it without realizing they're couching it in those terms. That they're always putting that dichotomy, front and center, right out there, even though they're unaware they're doing it. Whereas when I look at someone's sexuality, I consider all sexualities to be equally valid. Whether they're straight, they're bi, they're poly, they're queer, they are asexual. It's all valid in my book. Because if people are engaging in sexuality, that means they've got consent. Because if they don't have a consent, it's rape. And it's also that simple. And remember, consent is an actual, active, continual yes. If the yes ever disappears, it's time to have a conversation about what's going on. But we do that with all kinds of topics, not just sex. In America, there's white people and then there's everybody else. The default, the norm in America is white. And if you aren't white, it's perfectly acceptable to discuss your ethnicity, your race, your skin color in very neutral, very clinical terms. It's just a political discussion. When in actuality, you are discussing someone's very core of their existence, and you're dismissing it as being as important as your race, which is, of course, white. And that's disturbing, but it's also so damn common. It's everywhere. And we don't realize we're doing it. And I know I have been guilty of it in the past. I'm trying to become far more aware of how I frame the narrative, both in my head and in my daily life. If I don't know someone's gender, I will use they until I get told otherwise. Because sometimes someone's gender is, their presentation is a very certain way, and you can take a gamble if somebody's, dressed like me and has this kind of a facial hair and such. You're a pretty good shot of actually being correct if you say he, but not 100%. And if you're wrong, you don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to go into some good big explanation or just say, oh, sorry about that, and then that's it. Then you start using the correct pronoun. You don't have to make it a thing. It doesn't have to become a discussion. You accept the reality. You made a mistake. You correct yourself. And then to show that you actually meant it, that your apology was sincere, you then don't do it again. That's how you can tell a sincere apology. Does the person repeat the thing that they said they weren't going to do? If they don't repeat it, hey, that was a sincere apology. And if they do repeat it, they're just blowing smoke up your skirt. And they're going to continue being the person they were before, which might be someone you want to spend very little time with. But having discussions about other people's lives in a very political sense is vile. It puts things into this very sterile, clinical kind of framework. When you're discussing the lifeblood of someone's existence, and that's messy and organic and dynamic, and it shouldn't be thought of as a very clean, clinical thing. You can be very specific. I'm a big believer in specificity. Yeah, I'm a pedant of the first water. But that doesn't mean you have to be an ass about it. That doesn't mean you have to distill someone's existence into clean, sterile terms. It doesn't mean you have to think of yourself as being the default if you're a straight white Christian dude who presents as, who's cis. You don't have to necessarily think of yourself, I am the norm and everyone else is outside the norm. No, no, no. That's a world philosophy that'll get you labeled a bigot in a heartbeat. What you have to do is accept that everybody is of equal worth and equal value, and everyone else's life is just as important and just as messy and just as complex and organic as yours. And just as you would not want someone to talk about you in clinical, sterile terms, maybe you should not talk about other people that way. Maybe you should not turn their lives into a political discussion. And that is a very small modicum of respect. That is like the bare minimum. That is like the respect on an atomic level. From that, we can build greater things. But if we don't have that, we're not getting anywhere. So yeah, let's not talk about things as being the default and the political. Because not only is it disrespectful, but it's killing people.